Hi, Michelle.
Hey, Paul, how are you?
Good and yourself?
I'm great.
Yeah. Oh, there it goes. 1, 3, 11, 12. Hi, Nancy. You're muted.
I should be okay now.
Okay,
Um,
just a minute. Madam Chair, what's up? Where did you go? Lynn called me, but I'm not sure if it was for real.
it's tricky to get onto this meeting because you have to go, to a 128 email from you and then scroll down to this meeting time
Right,
on
that's
this
why,
day.
that's why I sent you one email.
Right, I
But,
understand that, but
and I suggested that you put it in your calendar.
right,
I made the link copyable to put it in the calendar. The other thing you can do is you can go to the town calendar and it's there somewhere.
okay. I'm
But
just saying
I'll keep that in mind. If it's a barrier, then next week I'll send out reminders a day or two in advance with the with the active link.
yeah, I'm just saying it
No
may be a
problem.
problem tonight, just so we'll
Okay,
see.
all right. Well, I'm just trying to limit the number of emails.
I totally understand. I'm just,
Hey, Paul, it's
Are you trying
Michelle.
to get in touch with me?
Paul, it's Michelle.
Hi, Lynn, are you trying to get in touch with me?
Oh, sorry.
I'm not seeing this on the community calendar. I've tried to open the old link that you had sent out and nothing is happening.
No, all the links are at the bottom of that email. But I will,
At the bottom of what?
whatever that email was that had
January 28th.
January 28th.
Yeah, no, that's the one I'm trying to I'm clicking on.
But it
Hey,
doesn't,
Paul, it's Michelle.
it doesn't have this date at the bottom, no? Okay. I will find it and send it to you. And next week we will do it differently.
Yeah, no, I'm seeing it, I'm just waiting, but
Oh, that's a shame. Nancy,
Paul,
where did you find it?
I found it in that email, but you have to scroll down to the next date on February 5th to get to it.
hey, Paul, it's Michelle. Just to let you know, the link in the community calendar is not working.
Oh,
So
that's not
you
good.
have to log into, an app, a Zoom app on your phone or computer, or go to zoom.us and log in with the ID and passcode.
That is a goddamn nuisance,
And
So I went to the email that you sent, Paul.
right?
This is
Yeah.
Ellen Goldberg.
Yeah,
I went to the email that you sent out some time ago saying you're not going to get subsequent emails from me.
yeah,
I clicked on the link that you prepared there, and that's how I got in.
yeah. Next to today's date.
Yes, the one
Yeah,
that the
yeah,
email that
send-
you sent.
Send that email right now to Lynn.
Oh, was that Lynn on the phone? Sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I can send that to Lynn to the spencerpreservationgroup.com.
yes.
Okay. There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, I went and I just looked for Paul Spurn in my email.
Wait, I can't hear you both. Lynn, what did you say?
I said, this is a problem if other members of the public can't get on because it didn't hit the community calendar.
Yes, it is. And I don't know why that is, because it's exactly the same link, excuse me, that I put in, and it should work. And I don't know why it doesn't work, but let me try it myself.
Excuse me, can anybody hear me?
Yeah. Who's that?
Hi, my name is Ben. I'm a reporter with the Daily Item. I was wondering if I could get that Zoom link as well.
Sure. Hold on a
Oh,
minute.
it's Michelle. Put it in the chat and I'll send it to Ben at the item.
Ellen, can you do that?
Yeah, I can. Hang on.
I wouldn't even know where to find.
Yeah, I'm just gonna copy it right from your email and put, oh, I don't think I can put it in the chat because I'm not a host.
Oh, shit.
I'll tell you the truth, I don't think I can do it, but I'll try. Unless you
Uh,
allow me to put it in chat, let's see. Message, let's see.
No, because it looks like it's going to go right to the host unless Paul opens up the chat. So
Okay.
Yeah,
let me
so it just sent it
respond.
to you. If you want to copy and paste that, Paul,
Wait a minute. Wait, you sent it to me how?
I just sent it in the Zoom chat.
How do I find the Zoom chat?
On the Zoom bar with all the like share screen chat, stuff like that.
Yep, there it is.
to-
I see
Yeah,
it.
go down to the
Got it.
chat. So select all that,
Yep.
select it, right click, copy, and then,
Select all of that.
yeah, so that whole message that I just pasted in there where it says
Okay.
topic Nahant CPC
How do I select the whole thing?
with your cursor.
Oh,
Just go to,
copy.
yeah, go to the bottom and scroll up or scroll down and then copy on it. Click, right click, copy. And then you want to send that to Michelle. So you want, Michelle, you'll take care of it from here.
Yeah, if he just
How do
emails it to
how
me,
do
I'll
I
send it
send,
to.
wait just a minute, please. I've copied it. Now how do I send it to Michelle?
So in the Nahant chat thing now, you're gonna go to, down at the bottom of the thing, it's gonna say to, and you go down and select Michelle. Cause she's gonna show up as a participant in
I
the
see.
chat.
Okay, now
So
I see it.
choose her name and then put your
Yeah.
cursor where it says message Nahant CBC. Put your cursor in there and right click paste and then click send.
I think it's the whole thing. Let me check and make sure it's all there. Yeah, okay. Send at the bottom.
Yeah, the
Okay,
little arrow guy.
Michelle, now, but Lynn's much more important.
I already emailed it to Lynn.
I'm just scrolling at this point. You sent it to me. It was the same thing that I was looking at before. I clicked on it and it was just scrolling.
Can't hear her. Can you put?
She can't do it. She can't find it. Maybe you should just send her the ID and password and,
No, I'm sorry, Nancy, I have it. I have
okay.
thing that was just forwarded to me. It was the same thing that I had clicked on 5 minutes ago. It is just scrolling.
Scrolling. Oh.
It is not opening, in other words.
Okay, Lynn, this is Ellen. Do me a favor. Open your web browser, go to zoom.us.
This is really not good.
Okay, if you go to, are you at zoom.us?
Yes.
Top right, you're gonna see the words join. Click on join.
Mm-hmm.
The meeting ID, are you ready?
Yep.
897-6872-7005. You need a passcode. Tell me when you're ready.
897-6872-7005.
Yes, that's the meeting ID.
Well, it's asking me to join a new meeting.
Yes, join the meeting.
I'm ready for the passcode.
038997
Can you just go slower, please?
038997
Yes. That it? Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Now I just need to get things off the screen. Well, first of all, I'm getting really good feedback. Any suggestions for that?
No. Oh, wait, maybe if we hang up the phone.
Good point. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, I just realized that I was muted. You didn't hear anything I just said.
No,
So,
probably
that's-
just as
Probably
well.
best, right?
Well, there is a certain amount of that. There's no question about that. So it is now 7:11. I'm Lynn Spencer. I am pleased to call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Community Preservation Committee for the town of Nahant. It's Monday, February 5th. It's 7:11. So what I'm concerned about, and Paul, are you putting things on the screen right now?
Yeah, I
Well,
should.
please just put up the minutes.
Yes,
That's really all I wanted to do to start with. But what I want to say is I am concerned that members of the public would find similar difficulties in attending this meeting. And I know, Paul, because I was tracking your emails, that you had reached out to Town Hall to Diane in her absence to just confirm that this was
Yeah.
going on to the town website. And I see that that didn't happen.
really? Oh,
Well, it's not on the community calendar.
It is, Lynn.
It is?
It is. Tonight's meeting is on the community calendar. I went to access it. What's the problem is the link isn't working.
Oh, yes.
The
All right. That's a
automated-
good distinction. That
The
is a
automated
really good
Zoom link
distinction.
is not working, but you can you can go to a Zoom app or zoom.us and put in the ID and passcode and still be able to get online.
And you
is the
can
ID?
also,
So you are saying this, Michelle, which is to the benefit of this community. It is not to the benefit of the community to hear this.
but you can also copy the link and then paste it into your HTTPS bar.
Yeah,
Yes,
but-
Barbara,
yeah.
I'm saying a different point.
Oh,
The members of the community who may want to attend this meeting are not getting this helpful coaching.
correct. Sorry. Yeah, right.
That's
So
all.
Lynn, it's Michelle again, and I apologize to interrupt. So I took the updated information that Paul put in the chat and I posted it to two of the Nahant Facebook pages. So if people are looking to dial in, that's the best I can do to get the word out there.
That's great. And that is much appreciated.
Thank you.
I just wish that there was a little bit. I mean, I've been in contact all day with Tony at Town Hall, and shame on me for not saying, oh, by the way, Tony, this link isn't working. Anyway, that notwithstanding, I'll call this meeting is called to order. Attending on behalf of the Community Preservation Committee are Paul Spurn, Nancy Catalmo, Ellen Goldberg, Dave Wilson, and myself. I do not see any other members of the committee, but if there is another member of the committee and they're not on the screen, somehow let me know so I can acknowledge them.
And Lynn, I think Austin said he was not coming tonight, correct?
That's correct.
Right, so it's only Jimmy Dolan, I think, who's missing.
Yes, I think that is correct. So what I'd like to start out with is the review of 3 sets of minutes that were distributed to the committee, as well as to our willing and able FinCom members who are with us tonight. Barbara Beatty, welcome Barbara, and Deborah Warren. So first up are the meetings.
So
of
Lynn,
the-
this is not one of the minutes you sent. This was the last one and for the very first one we did. And my question is, did we approve this 2
Yes,
weeks later? Okay,
yes,
then,
we did.
okay, and I think Ellen, you had the final version of this, so if you can dig it out and send it to me, I'll make any changes, but this is what I have.
The
It's not
final,
time- it's-
the
now's
final
not the
version.
time-
No,
Now's not the time to do it.
yeah,
But just send me what you have. Okay, here's the first one you sent, Lynn, November 20.
that's right. So can you scroll them down on the screen? So this is a relatively short meeting. It really was a meeting that was focusing on getting the grant applications, thanks to Ellen and Nancy, into a fillable form online. Are there any comments from the members of the committee on these minutes?
I move we accept them.
Very good. Can I have a second to that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Dave. I'll do a roll call vote. Paul Spurn,
Aye.
Nancy Catalmo,
Aye.
Ellen Goldberg,
Aye.
Dave Wilson.
Aye.
Chair says aye. Thank you very much. Okay, another set of minutes, Paul, to get
It's
done
coming.
in.
It's coming.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Next, this is really not minutes per se, but this is a summary of the public meeting that we had on December 4th. We had active participation from 3 particular speakers who are with us tonight, I think. So committee that attended that meeting, any comments on these minutes or on this summary?
Looks fine to me. I would move to accept.
Thank you, Nancy. A second, please.
I second.
Paul, okay. Roll call. Paul,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Ellen,
I abstain. I was not at this meeting. I was traveling.
good point. Then I need to change that because I think I did have you there. That's a good thing to change. Thank you. So we're going to change that now.
Right, I move to approve the minutes as amended.
Perfect. All right. Back to you, Paul.
Somebody has to second.
No. All right. Thank you.
Second, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Now we can do a roll.
Now we can do Paul,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Chair says aye, since I was there at the meeting too. Okay.
And
And then we get to the minutes of our last meeting, which was last Monday, January 29th. Again, any comments on these minutes? One clarification, which I will offer, which I got today from one of the applicants, is that Nahant First in Tennis is actually an application from Nahant Tennis, Inc.
Okay. So we should change this to Nahant Tennis Inc., is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. Any other comments? Okay, could I have a motion?
I move we accept the minutes as amended.
Thank you. Could I get a second on that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Dave. All right. I'll do a roll call vote of those present. Paul,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Ellen,
I,
Dave,
Aye.
Spence, Chair votes aye. Good. So, Paul, we've got that important piece of business completed. And
Yeah, we
can you-
did. Good work.
you-
Amazing.
Can you please then send these minutes plus the
Right.
November 4th minutes to Diane
Yep.
for
will do.
filing?
Yep, will
Okay.
do.
Great. I'm looking at the screen. I know that Tony is going to be joining us shortly. But in the meantime, while we wait for him, because we're going to be reviewing some specific applications per the schedule that we set out last week, I do see that we have some of our applicants joining us tonight. Trish, I think that I just want to confirm that we've asked you to be prepared to come to the meeting on Monday, February 12th, to discuss the Bailey's Hill open space application.
Yes, that's my understanding too.
Great. That's a good understanding. And then Michelle, we have you also scheduled for the same evening for the housing production study.
Can you just restate the date again, Lynn?
Monday, February 12th.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I sent this in an email out earlier today to all of our applicants. It showed the schedule for the next couple of meetings.
Okay,
So if that's not convenient for you, Michelle, let me know. There's another opportunity on Monday, February
No.
9th.
I'll be available. Thank you.
Okay, good, good. All right, I'm still waiting for our friend at Town Hall. Tony has managed to double book himself, being such a popular person. But he did tell me he would be joining this committee to talk about these grant applications. In the meantime, I had asked committee members through the minutes to take a close look at the application from Gary Dinas for the Nahant cyber proposal. I referred members of this committee to the Community Preservation Coalition Allowable Uses website. I'm wondering if committee members have had the time to take a look at that website and to take a look at the application, which was titled by Mr. Dinas, Nahant Cyber Proposal, Making Nahant the Cyber Worker Capital of the World.
Yeah, I did, Lynn. I looked at all the CPC material we had in terms of qualifications, and I couldn't see how this fits under the umbrella of CPC, no matter which way. I mean, it would be a wonderful either community development grant or adult um, uh, education grant. But I don't see how it's in our tent.
I hear you. Any other committee members with comments on this?
So this is Nancy. So Gary checked off all of the ways that you could apply for grants. What happens at this point? Does he tell us why he thinks it belongs to those, or do we make a decision that after a discussion, that it may not fit into any of those categories?
Let's just actually, could you scroll to that portion of the application that she's referring to, Paul? No, I think it's near the top.
Oh, is it? Sorry.
It says application purpose. I think this is what you're referring
Yes.
to, Nancy, where he has checked off that it meets the purposes of open space, community housing, historic preservation, and recreation. It's not immediately evident how those purposes are achieved in the narrative. I think as a matter of courtesy, we certainly will reach out to Gary and ask him to attend a meeting. But I do think the committee needs to look very carefully at the legislation that governs our grant program and make sure that those purposes are clearly met in this application as we consider it. It is a reach to me to see how that is achieved.
Yeah, this is Ellen. Can I just make a comment on that?
Yeah.
I do think we should invite him to perhaps explicate some of this a little bit more and give us a little clarity. Where he made the assertion that internet was real property, that's in my mind, that does not work. That's not real property. It's not real physical property. And I think we could have an esoteric conversation about that, but I don't believe that that's within the intent of the guidelines of community preservation statutes. So yes, potentially esoterically, yes, sure, but I don't think that that is what they mean here by real property and capital improvements to real historic property. So I think, as you said, it's a stretch, and that is what, if we're going with the definition of real internet property, that's I think an entirely different ballgame than the intent of the law.
Yeah, thank you. Is it you, Paul, who pulled this up?
Yeah.
So adroitly, that's very good. These are allowable spending purposes under the categories of open space, historic resources, recreation and land, and community housing. I think that, it's very creative to think about how the cyber application meets all these meets any and all of these together. But I think we have to be prepared to have what I'm sure will be a searching and perhaps, as you suggested, esoteric discussion about this grant application, which is made by an individual, which seems to be on the part of the town, but I'm not sure that it has the support of any town officials. So that will be another question. Well, I am not seeing Tony as yet, but I'm going to give him 2 more minutes. In the meantime, Paul, would you mind pulling up the February 5th summary of grants? And I can update folks on the.
Yep. There you go.
Okay, thank you. So if you wouldn't mind scrolling down.
Yeah. What number? Oh, you want to go to something else?
I want to go to, right there. down a little bit further if you would, please.
Tony is
stop.
on.
Great, that's great. We'll give him a moment to catch his breath while I just informed folks about where we are. I did update the spreadsheet to include after consultation with Allison,
Yeah,
the obligations that we have under the 3 bonds that we have. So that information is now in the spreadsheet. I also had gotten, if you can just hold it, Paul.
yeah.
So those are all there. I also had gotten the projected surcharge from Sheila Hamilton. And so we now have what we can reasonably construe is our funding for fiscal year 25. We're looking at CPA surcharge of $297,379. I am recommending that we consider a 50% match from the state. So that brings us to $446,068. And then we do have some reserve. So this just gives you an update in terms of where we are in terms of our funding capacity and our obligations. So with that, Tony, we are very glad to welcome you tonight. I know that you just did a fast track with the golf course committee, and we'd love to hear from you tonight about the applications you put forward. You want to start with a Flash Road master plan?
Yes, yes, that'd be great.
Okay, that's
Which
great.
number
Thank
is that, Lynn?
you.
All right, I'll
It's
check.
number 1.
Good.
Number 1.
Why
Yeah,
not start at the beginning?
start at the top.
There it is.
I
So
think,
Tony, I also think that you sent some illustrations today.
yes, I've gotten quite good at Microsoft Paint and was able to share that with you guys. I don't know, it would probably be helpful to pull that picture up.
It'll take me a bit, but I'll work on it.
All right, while you're doing that, so essentially, the town has invested a lot of CPC funding into existing recreational facilities, restoring what we already have. And we're now kind of at a point where we can start thinking about, new things. And Flash Road being, I call it our premier open space and recreation facility because it's next to the school. It has the Heritage Trail going through it. The school has multiple playgrounds and a gaga pit, a half-court basketball court right next to it, a forest playground. The Little League baseball field is there. Other Little League fields are there. The town soccer field, restroom facilities, Flash Road playground, the tennis courts, pickleball courts, basketball court, and the golf course, all within walking distance of this great space. And there are some, improvements to make in this area, but doing so with a master plan process to kick it off, I think would be helpful to kind of help us, not only get public input, but also set some goals for upcoming years. There's an old Babe Ruth baseball field adjacent, closer to the fire department, that essentially is now just a backstop. The infield is grown over. The dugouts have been removed because they were a safety issue for the town. And there's 2 old sets of bleachers there that, are a safety concern as well. And the soccer field that's in the outfield of the Babe Ruth field is nestled up very close to the golf course and the third hole. So one of the primary objectives or goals of this master plan process would be to get some public support for eliminating that old Babe Ruth field and moving the soccer field a little bit further away from the golf course, so it's a safer area for that activity. And last year, the committee and town meeting supported about $11,000, I think $11,000 for improvements to the Heritage Trail, which, you know, it's clearly defined as it enters Flash Road Park area on either end, but it's somewhat invisible within the park or playground space itself. There are some markings as to where the Heritage Trail is laid out, but it's not clearly identified throughout this space. So some of the things that we would really like to talk about is combining the funding that was awarded last year for the Heritage Trail into this process. And once we determine where some of these recreational facilities are going to be located in the area, discuss and plan how the Heritage Trail is going to integrate with those. And some of the things we've talked about is actually having the Heritage Trail even branch off into multiple trails through this area, giving people the opportunity, you know, to take different paths or walking paths in this area, to get from, you know, the school to the playground or the other way around. Paul, have you found that picture yet?
I found it needs to be rotated. It's just the diagram of the space. Is that right?
It was in the email that I sent today.
Yeah, I only have one email from you, and it
Yep.
had 3 links. Is that
No,
correct?
It was an attachment in
An
the email.
attachment.
An attachment in the email. Okay, let me go look a little further. Let's see. We got to get this to go away, and
How about if I resend it to you?
It's called the Flash Road Park Master Plan Concept is the
good.
attachment.
Okay, all right. Hold on. 3 attachments. Okay. Existing pole location.
Not that one.
Flash Road Park. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay.
Yeah.
That should be it.
So if I download that, I wonder where it's going to go. Let's see. It's going to go to, all right, let me put it. All right, let me just put it in CPC 25, and I don't know what'll happen once it's there, but let's see. All right, now it's there. Oops, sorry. And Flash Road Plan. What happens if I open it? I don't know what's going to happen. Not very successful. I wonder what it did. All right, let's try something else. Anybody have an idea what we should open this with? Paint?
If you go, Paul, if you go down on your Zoom screen, down the bottom, do you see where it says share screen?
Yes.
And there's a little arrow in the right corner of that.
Just a minute. It says I am sharing my screen. New share.
And you might be able to click allow multiple.
No, that is not an option.
I'm sorry, what's the issue? Are you trying to share something else, Paul, or are you trying to let Tony share?
I was gonna, if
why
you
don't-
allow me to share, I can pull it up.
All right, hold on a minute. And let's see, one participant at a time? No, click. Multiple participants can share simultaneously.
Yeah, click that.
I did.
Okay,
So now try and share tone.
all right. All right, can you see this picture?
No, we're still seeing Paul's screen.
Okay, wait, let me stop my share. Try it again, Tony.
Yep. There we go.
Brilliant,
We're seeing your screen.
brilliant. Can you make
Got
it a little bit bigger?
How's that?
Look at those awesome paint skills.
I know, right? So the Heritage Trail comes through and it's a little cut off. It comes from the community garden. It actually kind of comes down this road. And then it takes a right through the trees on the other side of the DPW yard. And then it kind of disappears again. It sneaks in through here and there's a post in this area. And on paper, it kind of follows this path and eventually, goes out and crosses the street at the other side of Flash. So part of what Kevin's idea was when he applied last year was to define it with either, some stone dust or, really kind of clearly show a definitive path for people to take. And I asked him to kind of hold because of this idea that we might move the soccer field away from the golf course. And then that could potentially interfere with whatever work he or the town wanted to do on the Heritage Trail. So basically the idea is let's potentially, go through a planning process and determine where these things are going to be located. And then we can start working on the Heritage Trail, even if the soccer field movement doesn't occur, first, because we'll know where that soccer field is going to end up. The other thing is the DPW yard. Can you see the hand or like my mouse?
Yep. Yep, as long as you keep moving it, because it's small.
So this is the fire lane. This is technically the fire lane that goes to the Little League field right here. What we'd like to do is actually square off the DPW yard so that we can properly fence it in. Right now we have a lot of walkers, people going out for a run or walking their dog or their kids in strollers, and they walk right through this parking lot. And we have a lot of equipment moving around and it's dangerous. So we'd like to kind of define this space a little bit better and encourage people to use the Heritage Trail in this safe area. Take this, it's beautifully lined with trees already. And then actually move the fire lane here, which is flat ground with the existing parking lot. We wouldn't really do a paved job. It would be more of like a crushed stone type surface so that you can nicely walk. It'll be level with the grass so you can walk over it easily. But if we had to get there with emergency vehicles, it would be a nice, easy way to do so. The parking in this area is something that was also identified in the open space master plan. Improved parking area here. And this is the old Babe Ruth field here that I was talking about. These dugouts are gone. And the soccer field is kind of gets used in this space here right next to the golf course. And many times stray golf balls find their way into this area. So moving the soccer field further away would promote safety for the use of the soccer field. And so you could think about a heritage trail that, not only does it come to this space, and it, you could have it run along here, come through here. When it gets to this area, it can take, the edge of this parking lot and run this way. You could have it run, run over here and run along this side of the soccer field and then loop back and then reconnect in this area, things of that idea. Because if you have a heritage trail that takes the long way, people who, kids trying to get to school or people who are, want a more direct path from one point A to point B, they're not going to take it because they're just going to walk the grass anyways. So the idea would be to, maybe map out a direct path and a more leisurely path in this space surrounding, these facilities that we already have and hopefully we build in the future.
Tony, can you define for me the difference between a heritage trail and just a walking path? What makes a heritage trail something special?
I think Lynn would be better at explaining the difference.
That was a really good punt.
Right,
Really
that's a good one, Lynn. Okay,
Thanks. I think the Heritage Trail had its genesis probably 15 years ago with the then Open Space Committee. And Linda Pivotek with this idea of creating, a trail that would basically begin roughly by the life-saving station, go through, the lowlands, and then traverse this area, which is the Flash Road zone, which is, I don't think, ever been quite clearly marked, honestly. Then it sort of goes behind what is now the Coast Guard housing. That's why Tony's coming forward with an application to clarify the route through Goddard Drive. And then eventually it comes out on Bailey's Hill. So it was meant to be, something that would allow, enjoyment of nature, perhaps some appreciation of the history behind these sites. But yes, it's an old idea that's been with us, I think, probably from the first or second year of CPA in Nahant. Why is it called the Heritage Trail? I'm not quite sure.
right.
So, I don't think that this is necessarily what the plan is going to be at the end of this
Right.
process. It's just, I thought it would help illustrate, some of the issues that we have in this area, some of the comments that were received through the open space master plan, and help kind of kick off the discussion. But really, through that public process is where you're going to find out more about what the residents, want to see specifically in this area.
Yes, thank you, Tony. I will remind applicants, Tony and others, that probably 10 years ago, we had funded what the recreation department had come to us to actually make improvements at the Flash Road playground area. At that point, we gave a planning grant, which the committee, which was then organized around that planning grant, decided to extend the purview beyond Flash Road, but to also include some other areas in the Nahant in terms of recreation. So Tony, I know we've spoken about this before. There's been a go at this master plan before. I understand that perhaps some of the materials that were generated for that master plan, just in terms of background, may have some value. But I do see this as a new, fresh focus application just on the Flash Road area, and also encompassing that Heritage Trail planning grant. So I see what you're after. I also just noted that in your application, you listed this as a number 2 of the town hall applications that you're putting forward to us.
Yes, because it's the first step in long-term potential improvements to the area. So, doing it, getting this process kicked off and get it started, you will speed up the process of potentially doing some of these things in the future. So really it's a time, that's why we prioritize it a little bit higher. And it was, Nancy could probably speak to it. It was something that, this area was a hot topic during the open space master plan process.
So one of the things that I remember from the grant that Kevin submitted before was there was a kind of a safety issue that came up about the school and the children who traverse this area. And one of the issues was that sometimes it was wet and soggy and sort of not safe for children or anybody walking through there. And I think when the plan thinks about where it's going to go, keeping on dry land or improving it so that it's safe is something that had been talked about.
That is absolutely correct, Nancy. Thank you. Tony, just curious, what's your number one application?
I think it's our housing development
I see.
study.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Okay, thank you. It's good to be reminded of that.
And you can see in the top right corner, a potential location for a splash pad, which goes into the next application.
It does.
Could I ask?
Before we do that, yes.
Yeah, I
Alan.
want to ask a question, and this is probably merging multiple applications, but it is a question I have, having brought up my kids here and having them had gone to the Johnson School, now knowing where that rock scramble is. The thing that concerns me about that is the layout of the road that parents or caregivers come to pick up around the side of the school. So they come right around that rock playground, that hillside area where the kids would be playing. Has there been consideration to potentially moving the driving path away from where the kids are now playing? And is that potentially able to be something considered with the hardscape improvements that are done with this scenario? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
The road is really scary, right? People, like, I've driven it and you have to go 5 miles an hour or less, or you really risk it.
Right.
And so it's always worried me. And if we're going through this process of hardscape, landscape, paving, can there be any thought to that, or am I off base?
So I think you're on base, except for this application isn't really for construction of hardscape. It's to have that discussion. That's where you're going to have that public process and say, the Heritage Trail in this area gets very dangerous. And we'd like to kind of look a little bit closer of how could we either adjust the driveway or adjust the path to improve safety in this area. And that's where the the contractor, the architect could help, by going down there, taking a look and actually taking measurements, some opportunities to iron out. Then then between that and the open space master plan that's already been adopted, we may be eligible for other types of grants from the state to help with the construction dollars for that hardscape.
I think that's a very good point, Ellen. You've brought up a point for the public process. So could you just talk a little bit about the public process piece of this, Tony, and then how you arrived at the budget for this master plan?
So I think this is a joint application with the open space committee. The idea would be that the open space committee would really lead the public process with a consultant. The consultant is
I was just thinking about texting.
Northeast Recreational Group, who is the architectural firm that helped us with the basketball and tennis courts. And given that his knowledge is recent experience of working in this area. I reached out to him to ask for, I explained all these elements. I told him what we were trying to hope to accomplish, and he provided a quote for his services to help us through that public process, and to, the end of which would develop a plan set that we could have on file.
Gosh, Tony, I am just looking at your grant application and maybe I'm missing something, but I don't see reference to the attachment you just referred to, or Northeast.
It didn't come through? His quote didn't come through with the application?
Not with the not with the PDF that I got.
Oh,
Folks, anyone else on this? Nancy, Ellen, you two are so smart about this, but I just didn't see attachments. Nor in the text did I see the reference.
let me. I will, I am attaching it to the email chain, from earlier today. I just sent it.
So this may be part of our efforts for continuing improvement on the fillable application form to make sure that we get the attachments. I saw some of your other applications, Tony, had attachments, but this one just didn't.
Yeah, that might have, I don't know if I didn't save it when I attached them, or
Yeah,
if that might be on me, I'm not sure.
I'm
But
sure we can, it's all will be continual constant improvement together, but if you can, there's two things, actually information from your consultant would be helpful. And then I think your application should include the layout, the diagram that you just shared with us.
Mhm.
I think that makes an improvement. Okay, there we go. Nestra Engineering.
So scope of services includes existing condition evaluation, needs assessment report, schematic design alternatives for proposed improvements, probable construction cost estimates, public outreach, and project presentation meetings. And these, a lot of the stuff I just talked about is here in this description.
So the other $11,000 that you are wanting to, I see he's in for just 19,
Yeah.
just under 19. But
Yep.
then the other $11,000, what is that funding?
That previously approved design and construction. But we don't believe that that's enough money to do both.
I think I might want to just gently disagree with you.
Sure.
I think that when Kevin had applied to us, he actually applied for improvements. We said, no, you really need to go through a planning process. You need to tell us where where this trail is and how it interacts with the site. So that became a planning grant, which is fine. And what you're saying is you'd like to reallocate that planning money. Yeah, that's right. We have the little Bible right here. Yeah, we love that. We love it. Having our own one. We'd like to reapply that to this project, which is fine. I think that's good for us to consider. The question is, what's that money for?
Well,
Shouldn't it be integrated into the Nestra work plan? In other words.
So if you read that proposal that I forwarded, it talks about a master plan study of the existing playground, soccer field, walking trails, DPW parking lot facilities. So it is part of what they will be planning or reviewing as part of this process.
Mhm.
I thought, I assumed, I'm trying to find the language now in a hurry, but I
Yeah.
figured that whatever the $11,000, whatever town meeting approved for the use of that $11,000, it had to live within that. It had to continue to live within that. And I
Mhm.
thought that I thought it was for improvements as well as planning. So I figured if we get funding through this application to bring in Nezra, the planning side of the $11,000 CPC grant from last year could kind of be pulled out of that and lumped into this. And then that $11,000 could be used for actual improvements. And that's why I'm saying if we go through a planning process and determine this is where these facilities are going to go, and this is where we want the trail to be, you can start building the trail before you make those other facility improvements because you know where they're going to be. That was kind of the missing element last year was, okay, we know we want to improve the Heritage Trail, but we don't know, how the other parts of this area is going to change. And we really want the trail to integrate well with where these other facilities are going to be located.
I
Well,
hear
by
you.
definition, the trail is going to be a border. There's going to be one thing on one side of it and something on the other side of it, wherever it is. So you're affecting the planning of many, many different use areas. So it seems to me that this is a very low figure for making what will be a scaffold for what you call, rightly so, the town's primary recreation area. I think that money will be well spent, particularly, excuse me, in the assessment of the natural area. Nancy, when you talk about wet walkways, you need to know what the drainage is, and you need to know the topography, and then you need uses, and it's a big process. I don't think this grant is nearly this project is nearly ambitious enough for what I think could be the next 30 or 40 years of an open space recreation area that is critical in the town. I think the place to start is the open space and recreation plan that Lynn talked about. And I would like to see whoever the provider is, be a firm that is experienced in all phases of design and build here, starting with where the town was 15 years ago and what have been the changes in uses that are needed and popular. And in order to find out what that is, there's going to be a lot of public participation. That takes time and it's expensive, but I think it's money very, very well spent. So I wouldn't rush into putting the Heritage Trail down. It's not an expensive thing to do. You could probably do the whole thing for the $11,000, and you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of improvements and changes here. So if you need to move the heritage, excuse me, the Heritage Trail a little bit because you're off on how big the soccer field ought to be, I don't think that's a big deal. But I would like to see more resources applied to planning than I currently see in this grant.
So just a quick thing, thank you, Paul. I just checked the warrant for that article, for that $11,000. And that was for the, for formulating a professional, well, I'll read it all. To appropriate this sum of $11,000 from fiscal year 2023 community preservation estimated revenues for the purpose of promoting recreation and the preservation and enjoyment of open spaces by formulating a professional design with specifications and cost estimates for the modification and construction of a partially rerouted section of the Nahant Heritage Trail
Right. Exactly.
between Flash Road and the community garden behind the Johnson School for improvements to grassed areas along the trail and for new signage. So that's why I was thinking this was really money for planning, just
Yep.
for that one section of the trail.
Mhm.
I tend to think that Paul's point is well taken. And that's why I was thinking Nezra has given you a very favorable proposal. But in fact, with the addition of that $11,000, to me, you then get for a $31,000 planning assessment, you get to some real money for actually doing some design options, doing the communications with the public, going back and forth. There is a back and forth process. And there's multiple constituents here. There's our Little League folks.
Yep.
There's our tennis. And I don't want to forget the pickleball folks.
Right.
There's the point that was raised about the Johnson School and that very interesting playground, that forest playground that has been created. And the point that Ellen just raised about, basically the vehicular circulation going right through. Oh, and let's not forget the community garden. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. And I think you're absolutely so right to think, well, let's just take a look at this and do a master plan. But I think what we're saying is you could have some more money for planning and do justice to the various constituencies involved. Oh, and I shouldn't forget the golf course. So, and the DPW and the fire department.
So are you thinking that between the $20,000 that we're asking for this year, plus the 11,000 that was approved last year, it's not enough to
We're
accomplish
saying
what you want to do?
we're saying that you could have a richer budget and do the kind of deeper work that you could do. I mean, Paul's raising that as a concern. I don't know if folks from open space have opinions on this. I'm certainly asking, we've got Nancy representing that on the committee. We have Trish here. But right now, that $18,750 budget doesn't actually include the $11,000 that you want to reallocate to it.
Well, that's his proposal. That was his proposal. It does, but in his proposal, he talks about trail work too. So,
Right.
I mean, I'm sure we could expand, if this 20,000 was approved and we combined the two and had a $30,000 budget, we could expand his proposal, his scope of work to get more detailed into some of the things you're talking about. That would certainly, give us enough budget, I think, for the process itself. And likewise, it's possible that there are some other grant opportunities that we could utilize to even expand it further. I haven't really looked through that yet, but with the completion of the open space master plan for the whole town, it makes us eligible for other types of grants at the state level that we could get into this too.
And I think you certainly will be looking at that when you think about the implementation of recommendations. There will be, could be some fairly substantial investment. But this is the time, I have to say, you know, I've been around this long enough. This is the time to actually nail a real master plan for the Flash Road area down. And that's why we gave money a few years ago. You know, we continue to see applications for things by the Little League, you know, the tennis court improvements, and let's not forget the splash at Flash. Can't
Well,
forget
and
that one.
the process that you talked about 10 years ago, you know, sometimes when you get into master planning, it can become kind of a blank check mentality, and it can get really into some far-fetched concepts. You know, what we're hoping to do is really kind of focus on realistic goals that we could accomplish over the next, upcoming years here in this area. That plan, I think, resulted in, you know, taking the softball fields from the lowlands, moving them over here, and like major changes that, you know, I don't think the town would ever be really able to afford that type of thing. But, you know, like for instance, moving the soccer field and developing marked trail system in this area, those are very doable things but you want to get the community support behind it, and
That's right.
everybody be on the same page.
So I think, you know, setting the parameters for this study is important. And that's going to be very important with the public process. First of all, you know, with defining your consultant's involvement, but also with the public process. Because what you're saying is you don't want the sun and the moon and the stars. You want actually the Flash Road playground to be improved for the benefit of all of the users and abutters. So. Other committee members' comments on this application?
I was just, this is, I was trying to compare this, say, to the Lodge Park plan, and that was really thoughtfully, carefully done, but the scope of what that involved was so much smaller
Yeah.
than what this is
Yeah.
involving.
Yeah.
And I don't know this contractor well. It seems to me somebody who focuses on playgrounds and recreation. And I'm just wondering if the scope of their work is broad enough to include all these other things. It's so much more than playgrounds and where they're situated. It just seems this person is so much more about making the basketball court, and that's the kind of stuff they've done in town. Is that correct?
Well, that's all they've done for us in Nahant, but they have a lot of experience with other things. And it's just a proposal, you know, for me to get some sort of ballpark idea of how much
Right.
money we're going to need for this process. We don't have like a signed agreement with them or anything like that, so we're not committed to this one particular company. But I think, you know, I could get some more information about them. And Nancy, I think, like I said, I think that your committee, the open space committee, is going to be, you know, need to be invested in the process. I think you guys have to kind of lead this along. So any types of concerns or questions related to the contractor, we could iron out together before we sign any type of agreement or anything like that. But certainly if this scope seems limited, it's valued at 18.75. If we get 20,000 and plus the 11,000 from last year, you know, we can expand the scope of this proposal pretty extensively, I think.
You do have to get, isn't the price of it such that you do have to get other bidders?
For engineering in Massachusetts, you don't have to. For this type of work, we don't have to go through that process.
Okay.
But it doesn't hurt to reach out to multiple firms and make that effort. It's a best practice. It's just not a requirement.
So it's really not an engineering project, though.
No, it's not an
It's really a,
Planning.
I have to,
plan-
it's
it's a
planning.
planning project.
It's a template, the kind of thing you usually see with the landscape architect, quite
Mm-hmm.
honestly.
Yeah.
Um,
Tony, what's the land area roughly? How many acres?
Oof. I don't know the answer to that question.
probably 4 acres solidly,
Easy. Oh, I would
Easy.
think easy, yeah.
easy.
The only reason I'm asking is just so I could get a napkin type proposal from somebody in landscape planning about, you've got a dozen uses there. And
Yeah.
and it's 4 or 5 acres. And I don't even know if it's, do you think there are accurate maps of drainage or anything else, or not really? They would have to do that kind of assessment first, I guess.
Right. Existing conditions assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is, I think, a much bigger project. I don't quite know how they could do this for that kind of money. That's very small money. So, I'm a little dubious of it. I think they're gonna give you less than you think you're gonna get, but I may be wrong. And I'm not saying anybody's being dishonest. I think, engineers have an approach to things, and it may not be the approach which we need for a very complicated multi-use site.
I think the site plan is a critical part of this. So there's got to be something for the golf course, and I shouldn't say there's got to be.
Right.
Roll back on that, Lynn. But I would refer, let's go back, if there's anywhere at Town Hall, the previous recreation study, I'm hoping that there might be some data from that could be mined, such as an existing site plan.
Yeah, starting.
That would show the wetlands boundaries. I mean, we certainly have this as we, experience the work at the tennis court and so on.
All right,
I mean,
Lynn?
wasn't there you referred to some kind of plan of the hydrology of that area which the town had done?
That's right. That's right. The Bear Pond study, Tony.
But that didn't really expand into the Flash Road recreational area though. But I'll look at, why don't I look at the previous effort and see what we can get from that. And then what I could also do is I could reach out to a couple other firms and see if I can get a couple other, quotes or proposals.
Mhm.
And
Hey, Lynn?
just, the requested amount, I can do that with you
Great.
guys.
I want to recognize Dave Wilson. Yeah, Dave.
How you doing? I don't know if you know, a few years ago, they did a master plan for that whole area. And what they did was they actually had a map with all the boundary lines and everything. They spent over like $330,000 to fix the ball fields, put in a new tennis court, and also a playground up for the school. So, as you know, I've been there quite a while, and there are plans for the drainage system for that whole area.
Mhm.
And I'll be willing to have, to show Tony what's going on down there. But there are plans for that area.
Yeah, you're so right, Dave. We spent a lot of money on the tennis courts, and that had to be then done according to Concom requirements. We've also invested in that heritage trail and in the Little League Park and also at Johnson School and the community garden. So CPA funding has touched all of those things. Now we really need to integrate this and really deal with some of these issues of safety and ease of use and if you will, boundaries. I think your point about the DPW yard and the kind of fire station and the kind of openness that offers can be a problem at times. I wander through it a lot, but that's that doesn't count. Um, so folks, I think we've had a pretty good discussion on this. Do we also want to change the applicant to include the open space committee?
Can I say something? This is Trish.
Sure. Yes,
Chair of the
Trish,
Open
please
Space
do.
Committee. So I haven't actually read this proposal, seen the proposal or read it. And I am not familiar with Nezra. I mean, I saw what was up here on the screen very quickly, but I, certainly haven't looked at what they're proposing other than just when it was quickly flashed on the screen. So I guess I think it's a complicated area down there, as we're all saying. There's an awful lot going on with a lot of different constituents, and it's important to get it right. I mean, really put some good effort into, I would think, again, a master planning process for that area to try to, figure things out and juggle the competing interests and constituencies and so on. So I think it's a very worthwhile undertaking. It's been tried before, and I think my impression is it was pretty complicated and difficult and so on. So time has passed, and it's good to have another run at it, but to really have a good master planning process, a thorough process. And just from looking at Nezra, on my phone, they look more like engineering people, from what I can quickly tell, than really capable of doing master planning process. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's from first glance, that's how it looks. So I'm all for the open space committee being part of this, although it makes me nervous, I gotta say, because it seems like a really big job. But I don't know, that's my 2 cents off the top of my head.
Thank you, Tricia, because I was about to say, are you in fact a co-sponsor of this? And it sounds like you're fresh to looking at this.
Yes,
Very
I'm
fresh.
completely supportive of the concept. I think it's a really important thing for the town to do, and I'm glad Tony got it rolling. But in terms of a co-sponsor that really signed on to this particular, CPA grant proposal, I haven't seen it. So
Yeah.
I didn't do that. We
Okay.
didn't.
I think we sort of
Maybe.
had this, when we had a talk with Tony, we said we would sponsor the one which is, Bailey's Hill 3. And then and the town would sponsor the other ones, but we would be co-sponsors with them as the league. Because realistically, this is not something we can take on, honestly. I think you would agree, Trish. I mean,
Yeah.
Is that we will sacrifice meritocracy. That is the sad
What is that?
bottom line equation right now.
Sorry about that.
anyway, that's part of the plan about who and how, and it moves from here.
Yeah.
Can I
I
just
think
say
the idea
something
would-
on behalf of FinCom at some point?
Mm-hmm. Barbara, please.
I'm listening to all of this and I'm agreeing. This is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking about all of the pieces, as we're all saying, and thinking about coming up with a large plan, that's going to be expensive, but we're talking about something that's very important and very, to have this more of I think what Paul is suggesting, to find a landscape architect proposal that would really create the kind of master plan that the town could then see and could be presented at town meeting in a very, beautiful, sophisticated way. I think it would be useful, Paul, if you could come up with some other additional architectural firm to think about this in that larger scope. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, we are hearing you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
So, Tony, I think what you're hearing is something like this. Open space is supportive of the idea, but doesn't have the bandwidth or involvement at this point to be, closely involved with us. Committee members are expressing the understanding of the importance of this, including, Barbara from FinCom, understanding that this is an important thing. It has multiple elements and constituents, which include the Johnson School, the DPW, the fire department, the Little League, the tennis court folks, the golf course,
The
Johnson's
Concom.
Concom. So everybody's saying, whoa, this is exciting and good for you for putting this in front of us. But this is something that requires some more development as a application and as a planning document. So the question is to the committee and to you, Tony, is do you have the bandwidth and the ability to work on this in a very compressed fashion? Because as you know so well, we need to be able to go to town meeting with recommendations in April.
Yeah, I can talk to neighboring communities that have gone through processes like this and what firms they used and reach out to those firms and talk to them about what we're looking to do here and get some additional quotes or ballpark numbers as to what would be involved. So I can certainly jump on that myself. That being said, I think Trish or Nancy should be involved because this process doesn't happen without your committee. You guys have to be an integral part of it as the Open Space and Recreation Committee for the town. So we should definitely, I think you guys should be part of the process of maybe talking to some of these other firms and get more comfortable with, how they would lead the process and take on, most of the, most of the work associated with this, with you guys being that group that helps kind of be the intermediary between the residents and the consultant. So I'm happy to try and get some more quotes and some more information from other firms, but I think, the Open Space and Recreation Committee definitely needs to be invested in this process if we're gonna, seek funding from town meeting to go forward.
May I suggest this? Because this has really raised a number of issues and it's been a very interesting conversation. May I suggest that folks from Open Space, Trish, you and Nancy, and others of your committee get together with Tony and really talk about what could be meaningfully accomplished in this cycle. And then if you want to come back to us for further discussion, we would appreciate that. But rather than putting anyone in an awkward position right on the screen right now, I suggest take this off the screen, move it through a review process and be prepared, if you will, to come back to us. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you. Tony, I'm not finished with you yet. The next one was up and it's a splash at Flash. And I really congratulate you on the title of that grant application, Tony. Just gotta say, it's my favorite.
So this application, obviously, I think that the master plan comes first.
Thank you. We're all on board with that.
That being said, I couldn't go another year just running my mouth about this idea of a splash pad without actually putting pen to paper. So I submitted the application
Yeah.
to the committee, and there is support from potential private fundraising. There is there, and I think that if the town took the first step towards commitment towards going down this road and potentially building a splash pad, that it will spark a lot of that private fundraising. And I've had some conversations with folks who who came to me about wanting to do a splash pad, and they didn't even know that it was something that we've been talking about for the last few years internally. So it is an extravagant idea, but it's all positive impact to the community. It's not just something for small children. It will benefit families and kids of all ages, and it expands, the value of this, premier open space and recreational area in the town. And so,
So it's certainly on the agenda for the master plan.
yes, I would
Yeah.
definitely want it to be an element of that planning process.
Yeah. So I'd like to suggest that we sort of table that pending further, really dig into that master plan idea, because this is the place where you put the stake in the ground, or the water pipe in the ground.
Can I share my screen just real quick so that people may or may not know what I'm talking about when I say
You certainly could do that, but don't do the whole video, Tony.
Let's see here.
So while he's getting that up, whenever I talk about this with people, especially people with kids, they're wildly enthusiastic about it. I mean, it's so cool, especially because our playgrounds are not, like hugely, up to the minute compared to other towns. But I just want to say it's got to be part of the master plan, and where it goes and what its scope is. And also, given our limited budget this year,
Right.
it's really hard to put it in that context.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Nancy. That is true. We have 3 times the applications that we have money for.
So let's see if I can pause it right there. Is that showing on your screen?
Yes.
So essentially it's a water feature playground. For those that are unaware, this is a rendering that goes along with the quote that we received from the playground contractor that we used for Little Nahant Playground. They also do splash pads. And this is just a conceptual rendering of different type of water elements you could include. And this was priced out for the town of Nahant. But again, I think that, I think this is part of that master plan process.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I like the creativity for sure. And glad to hear that folks are interested in it. I kind of just thought maybe like a sprinkler would do, but that's wrong.
Right, a fire hydrant with a sprinkler, right?
I don't know. We used to run through those, right, Tony?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
what's it?
That was the old days.
I grew up in the city. Yeah, I grew up in the city. I was telling my daughter, I was like, they used to call the fire department to open up the fire hydrants on hot days.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
This is not Philadelphia, mother.
Oh, that's fun.
A lot of towns that have public pools are converting to either shallow pools or these types of facilities because they're much safer. Don't require, lifeguards or anything like that.
Interesting. That's an interesting point.
And it's also recycling this water gets recycled through a system, so it's not it's
Mhm.
not a huge waste of resources.
Kind
Okay.
of ironic that we're talking about putting a water feature in the middle of an island with hundreds and hundreds of yards of beaches. Just saying.
We hear you, Paul. Okay, so let us go. In the interest of time, I'm going to push this along because Tony, you've given us so
Yeah.
much of your time tonight.
Sure.
Little League lighting.
Yes. Okay.
Again,
so-
another part of the Flash Road.
Yep.
Yep.
More paint, more Microsoft Paint to share with you.
As if we're not already impressed.
I thought it would be helpful to show. So this is the Little League field in this area, and there are existing light poles. This is it was hard to get them to show up on Google Earth, so I had to add, I had to outline them with Microsoft Paint. But this is where the existing poles are. So lighting, was supported by this community in the past for this area.
Yeah.
I think it would be supported again. And I also have Dave Elmer from Nahant Little League on the call tonight. If you guys have any questions about, numbers within the Little League and usage of the field. But our field is the way Dave and I spoke about it. It's on rainy days or long weeks where it's been raining for days on end. Our field is the only usable field in the area, not just, out of Swampscott and Lynn, and it has the best drainage out of any Little League field in our neighboring communities. And so it gets used a lot, especially during those times. But it's limited by daylight, obviously.
Yeah. Thank you.
And those other fields do have lighting? Dave?
So the other fields that we use in Swampscott, there's 8 fields in total. The one behind the middle school DHC field does have lighting. The Phillips fields do not. None of the other fields have lighting either. Very quickly, there's in 23 there were 73 of the 375 Little League kids came from Nahant. We have kids of all ages participating, starting at T-ball and going all the way through Little League age 12. We're using those 8 fields for either practices or games 7 days a week. 5 or 6 of those days per week, depending on how the schedules lay out. We're using the Nahant fields. Currently, there are games that take place at night. There's kind of the prime time slots from 7 to 9. Those games are scheduled 3 times a week at DHC, and
What is DHC?
I can't remember the names of the individuals that it's named after, but it's the field behind the Swampscott Middle School.
Okay.
Yep.
When
Beside
you said there are 8 fields being used every night or 6 nights out of 7, only one of them is in Nahant, correct?
2 of them are. We use the other
Low
field. Yeah, let's see. I can share the screen and show you the other one if it's helpful. So we use this is obviously the field we're talking about for the lighting. We actually use both of these fields for T-ball practices and games. Among this is the better of these two fields. It depends on the maintenance that we're able to put into it on a kind of a year-to-year basis and the number of kids. So this would actually make 9 fields if you count both of these. But these are generally used for T-ball, and then this is used for the older kids.
Right, how many Little League teams does Nahant have?
We merged with Swampscott last year. So the two leagues are now combined, and there's 375 kids. I don't know how many teams off the top of my head. Generally, they're probably 12, 13 kids per team.
Right.
It's late, and math is hard for an engineer. So we'll call it 28 teams.
And are we talking at 3 levels? Are we talking about T-ball, minors and majors, or what?
Yeah, we're talking about T-ball, coach pitch, instructional, then kid pitch, minors, and majors.
Okay, so those are 4 levels.
Yep.
Okay, so Nahant has 72 kids playing at 4 levels. Is
Yep.
that right?
Yep.
Okay. So that sounds like a maximum of 6 teams, maybe 5, 4 or 5 teams.
Yeah, somewhere in that vicinity, but all the Nahant kids don't play together. So they're grouped with all of the T-ball kids in Nahant play at these 2 fields. When you get up into the coach pitch and higher, we're merged with Swampscott. Going back the last few years, we weren't able to field a majors team. We'd only have 2 or 3 kids in some years, which is why we merged with Swampscott. So we play Nahant and Swampscott kids play together from coach pitch on.
Okay, right, all right. So sometimes kids are playing here, Nahant kids are playing here, and sometimes they're playing in Swampscott and sometimes other fields as well. I'm not entirely sure. I'm trying to get a feeling for what the Nahant commitment is to what the Nahant contingent is, how big it is, how many families are involved.
Right. Yeah. So the 73 kids is kind of gives you an idea of how many kids are involved from Nahant. The combined Little League at 375 is a really strong program. As a combined league, we won the Division 16 title last year. It's a full year program with spring and fall baseball, summer tournaments. We're in the middle of running a winter clinic at an indoor facility in Danvers for 8 or 10 weeks. The Little League does a great job of investing in these resources. We got a lot of volunteers who are participating and maintaining the fields and fundraising and other items. There were $80,000 worth of improvements to the dugouts in Swampscott at the Phillips, the 2 Phillips fields. That'll be fully in place for the spring season. There was another 25,000 in improvement to the softball fields over in Swampscott. So it's a strong program. There are a lot of kids involved. The lighting here is really going to make a difference, even more so in the fall than the spring. Games have to be shortened because of the lights. There's only 1 field to play at night. We're estimating that we can increase the scheduling of games by about 25% in the spring, and we'll be able to double the number of games that can be held in the fall league. So,
So
it
it
really,
sounds to me like there's going to be a lot of usage of the Nahant field by people who don't live in Nahant, which means a lot of cars. Do you have parking? Is that a problem?
so it's kind of the same whether it's for Saturday morning soccer or whether it's for
Okay.
for any of the
Sure.
baseball events. The cars are all packed in there at the across from the fire station. There are folks that are parked along the back of the fire station facing Flash Road. People pile into that fire lane and kind of turn up where Tony was talking about the heritage path. Other people park on the other, kind of on the other side behind the school. So it's the same thing that happens at soccer, at all of the school events, and for the Little League practices and games. So I like the discussion about the master planning for that space, and certainly parking is. I mean, it's wild down there.
An issue.
People
Yeah.
people are parking wherever
Right.
they can find a little space.
It's a
So can
planning.
I ask a question, please? I know that some of our fields are revenue producing for the town, Tony, but we're not talking about that with these fields. Is that correct?
Well, this past year, so the CPC also funded improvements to this field in the past couple of years with the backstop, the fencing, and the dugouts.
Right.
And so we kind of brought some new life to this field in the last couple of years, which did bring in new revenue for the town. What we do is we first give scheduling rights to the Little League field, to the Little League organization. So they have first priority. And then we've had kind of regional or private teams reach out to the town about renting the facility, like Swing Factory. So usually, what we would charge, I think in the past we've charged the Little League $500 for the season to rent the field. In the last 2 years, Swing Factory, who only used the field maybe, do you remember, Dave? Like maybe, I don't know, half a dozen times.
Something like that.
We charged them $1,000 and we didn't charge the Little League anything. So by promoting the use of the field, we subsidize Nahant youth costs of renting the facility with private use. So adding lights would help us do more things like that because it increases the amount of time that you can use the field. So we could potentially rent it out more, bring in more revenue, and subsidize the cost of local youth sports.
Okay. Thank you. Dave, very glad to have you here tonight. I just want to actually have folks look at the grant application, be prepared to look at it. This is one where
Can I ask-
attachments were successfully embedded in the grant application. Okay. So
Yes,
thank
they
you.
were.
Thank you, Ellen, for making that happen.
I do have
I see
could I
several
ask a
quotes.
question?
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, thanks. That was where I wanted to go. I wanted to talk about the quotes. I saw two
Yeah,
quotes.
please. Yeah.
One was for roughly 72,000, the other was for roughly 82,000. And so did you round up to 100 here? What was your thinking? Or did I misread the quotes a bit?
No, that's
So
correct.
I think there's
Oh, go
uh,
ahead, David.
yeah, I think there should have been maybe 3 quotes in there because the third lighting quote was for 58 or 59,000, and that's for the lighting supply components anyway. So or only there are 4 60-foot light poles and the associated lighting hardware, and the cost of those materials is roughly $60,000. Those were a couple of years old, I think. So I asked that vendor to give us a current quote, which was about 60,000. I've also reached out to a couple of other vendors to see if we can do a little better on the pricing. The second element to it is the trenching and the foundations for the light poles. So we need to run new electrical conduits to the 4-pole locations. The wiring needs to be strung through those conduits. The poles need to be placed. The lights need to be installed and aimed. So there's some additional labor that's associated with that too. And we're in the process of obtaining quotes for that portion of the job as well. And, you know, I think that's why the ask was 100,000.
I see.
So are you confident that 100 would cover you?
Yes. So I'll probably get the quotes for the installation in the next week or two. We've also put in place some contingency plans for local contractors or equipment suppliers to donate some of the labor or equipment should that be become necessary. My firm's willing to donate the foundation designs for the footing designs for the engineering as an example. So we are confident that we can get the job done for $100,000 one way or the other.
Yeah, and generally, Alan, when on these applications, I try to come up with like a high number, a not to exceed number, because in the past, if we don't spend it all, we return it to the CPC for a future year. So we try to go, we usually
for sure.
We try to round up because we treat it as like a not to exceed number.
But it's much better to, you know, I mean, obviously accuracy is preferred, but if you need to round up because you're not sure of certain things and you need a contingency, we don't want to undershoot.
So I have this request or this question to Tony and Dave. Is this an application from the town of Nahant with Little League? And do the numbers that you've been developing just as the sort of the gauge for this, have they reflected a public procurement process?
No, just quote sourcing.
No, just quote sourcing, but to the point that Ellen was raising, is there enough money in here, assuming that you'll have to go through public procurement to make this work? And
We likely will have to go through public procurement.
yeah, you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, you will. So Dave, this is the sort of ouch that we sometimes experience with our applicants, where, you know, there's the combination of donated services and all kinds of goodwill and hard work by people like you, but we hit the wall. We hit the requirement for public procurement, which it sounds like you have some knowledge of if you're an engineering firm.
Lynn, to your other question, and it came up when we were talking about the other grants as well. When I filled the grant application form, I put my name as the applicant, but then the third or fourth question asked, you know, board or committee associated with the application. And I don't see it on the PDF, you know, printout here that the committee received, because that's where I put, you know, Board of Selectmen / Open Space Committee, or in this case, you know, Board of Selectmen / Little League, Nahant Little League. But it's not popping up, or I don't see it on the screen.
I'm looking at this is, so I'm still looking at the splash pad, for example, and that shows like the town committee or board if applicable, Board of Selectmen, Open Space and Recreation. So I see it on that one. Let me pull up the lighting one.
Aren't I sharing the lighting application?
You should be.
Can you scroll down a little, Paul?
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you're right.
So, I mean, it says
Maybe you didn't fill it out.
the applicant is Tony Barletta.
Yeah, maybe you missed the box when you filled it out.
Okay, so who is the applicant?
Town of Nahant
Town of Nahant, okay,
with the Little League.
okay.
So this may be a thing as we think about refining this application, is a couple of things. Application purpose is perhaps not, I'm just looking at it, is perhaps not appropriate. It could be application category or grant category, because that's where the open
Yeah.
space historic preservation
Right,
comes in.
right.
And then it could be, partnership organization. There could be a blank for partnerships. So that things like the Little League and, anyone else who uses
Right.
those fields or open space can be noted. But we're going to be, Ellen has talked about, this is the time to improve the application. And as we're reviewing these
Yeah.
applications, we're seeing that.
And if we make it a required field and just include an NA box for somebody to check,
Yeah,
then
right.
Yeah.
then we'll get it, right?
Then we'll get it.
Opposed to
Exactly.
making it
And
an
you'll get
optional
it.
field,
That's
Yeah.
right.
Then we'll
That's
get it.
exactly right.
So it is drawing on to 9 o'clock. You've been a very patient committee, but other questions for Tony and Dave, who are kindly with us tonight.
Dave, what's the possibility for private fundraising here? Nothing was cited in the application.
So it's certainly something that we can that we can work on. It's important to us to get this over the hump, and if there's an ask from the committee for some donation or additional funding, we can certainly work with you on that.
I'm sorry. I have experience with Little League. My son played, so I know that there is a budget, that you guys have some money in hand that, I don't know where the committee will land on this particular grant, but we tend to look favorably if there's an ability to get some matching funds.
Do you have a suggested amount or a percentage? The numbers are maybe a year or so old, but in-season operation costs per player are about $150, uniforms, etc., throughout umpires throughout the year. So there's a pretty small amount that comes on top of that. There are scholarships that are given for those who need some financial support and so on. So it's a pretty lean operation. There are funds there, and we do fundraising. There's a push to increase our fundraising. We're going to try running a golf tournament this fall over at Tedesco to see if we can see if we can bring in some extra funds. I do have a board meeting tomorrow night, so if there was a suggestion on a percentage or an amount here, I could certainly bring that to the board's attention tomorrow.
Dave, I
This is-
think if you could also maybe quantify the in-kind services that you were talking about donating from your firm on the engineering services, just so we can include that in the application document and it can be, discussed should this application move forward.
Yeah, be glad to. The other item I was talking about, I'm not super familiar with CPA funds and their allocation. As I listened to the discussion about who the applicant was, is there a potential advantage to having the Little League be the applicant, and
Mm.
Just
I think-
curious as to how the committee looks at that.
I landed on it as a town and a Nahant application because it's a town and a Nahant property.
Hmm.
Right. Yeah.
But I think it is like a co-sponsor application, or a partnership, how Lynn described it, so. I don't know, I don't know if the committee has a preference on who the actual lead is.
I think the issue is going to be who owns the property and how
Yeah.
that works.
Right.
And, you know, Dave, and Tony and others, when we've had town-owned properties that are leased on a long-term basis, such as the life-saving station or the community center, and when I say long-term, it's like 20 years.
Hmm.
That is one part of the way to then move this to a private bidding.
I see.
But that's a long-term, lease basically, and that needs to go through a public procurement process. So it's a bit difficult, quite honestly. I think you're going to get good services with Tony and Zach, on the procurement. I mean, you've already done such good legwork on, getting proposals that tell us the kind of order of magnitude of costs that are involved. So I think probably it makes sense to stick with this course. And I think what Ellen has suggested is if Little League is able to put some money into something into this, either in terms of, cash or donated services, like from a firm like yours, it will advantage the application. Because it is a lot of money.
It sure is.
It sure is. It's a lot of
Yep.
money. And I just have to say, having recently spent a lot of time with National Grid and so on, where is the power coming from?
Yeah, so it's one advantage of the LED lights. They don't draw much
Yeah.
current. It can be preliminary layout is that it'll be pulled from the snack shack. So there's
Oh,
a
okay.
there's a meter and a line that comes in there.
David, what about solar? You're only talking about lighting for 2 hours.
Yeah, solar is something that could be something to consider. I don't know where I mean, we could consider ground mounted panels as part of the master plan. You'd need battery storage. It also certainly brings into play a lot of the renewable energy grants and
Yeah, I mean,
credits.
I would think about that seriously. You could have a series of panels all the way up those poles. Every pole could have 4 panels on it. And you're right, you could have ground panels as well. I think solar is probably the way to go here. Also, you don't have to trench if you solar.
I'll check that out with a couple of the vendors to see if they have any that they've built that way.
I think this type of lighting draws too much, and
Right.
the lights are on at night when the solar panels aren't. That's why battery storage
Oh,
comes in.
no, of course there has to be battery storage, correct.
But Paul, what we're looking at as a town, because this meter, it does come to the town. As a community, we're looking into a large scale solar project to help offset the cost of our electricity bills for all public property in town. So we are looking into that, but it's more big picture than just a specific facility, offsetting a specific facility.
Interesting.
Can I ask one question? Sometimes when we don't have enough money, we take our grants and divide them up. But I'm thinking that the way this project is, it's not something that could be divided up. We need all of this money to complete this project as it is, to get the lighting and the purpose you need.
Yes, I think that's right.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions from the committee? So it is rising on 9 o'clock. Oops, it's just past 9 o'clock. And I'm going to suggest that we consider deferring the fourth item that we were asking Tony to speak to, which is the boulder scramble at the Johnson School. I'd like to suggest we push that to either the next meeting or the following meeting. And Tony, you're up next Monday. So
The boulder scramble. I think Kevin submitted that application, I believe. So let me connect with him and make sure he's gonna be available next week to speak to that.
okay.
I wasn't planning on speaking to it tonight anyways, because it really wasn't my application.
Think Kevin and Diana Brandy and the Garden Club were.
I have no, but it's the same thing. This is a town-owned property. You know, Kevin actually works for the town. So the applicant, which has two names, Kevin and Diana are, they're not really the applicant, but so we'll need to straighten that out. So Tony, if you're willing to reach out to Kevin and Diana about next week, that would be fine if you'll let me know. Otherwise, right now we have scheduled for next week review the Bailey's Hill Phase 3 Master Plan Phase 3 application, the gazebo also by the town of Nahant, along with the Heritage Trail at Goddard Drive, and the housing development study.
Right.
And I can tell that, you know, we're going to have to compress or add more meetings. So, but Tony, let me know, because I know this is, you know, we draw heavily on your time in the evening, so I want to be sensitive to that. What is realistic for you for next week?
Whatever you, I'll be on. I'll be here. So whatever
Okay.
you need.
Okay. Well, would you kindly reach out to Kevin and see if
Yes.
he can attend for the Boulder Scramble?
Yes.
I'm concerned. I do want to give you and Michelle a good opportunity to talk about the housing development location study. So what I'm going to suggest is that we start the meeting with that discussion and then move on to the other Town of Nahant applications, which would be the Heritage Trail, the gazebo, and the Phase 3 of Bailey's Hill. That makes sense?
Yeah. Luckily, Heritage Trail and gazebo should be quick. There's not
I hope
much.
so. Yeah, I hope so. Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask you is if you have had a chance to reach out to the other applicant for the beach access mats and wheelchair.
I spoke with her today.
Okay.
I wouldn't say there's a commitment to withdraw yet, but we had a really good conversation, and we're going to continue to talk forward. I think that, you know, we're both in the difference between our applications is I tried to live within the limitations of cost and permitting that you know, through my experiences, I've come to get a good grip on, where the other application is kind of you know, beyond that. And so I think some of the description of some of the ideas in the other application, you know, she admittedly said she wasn't really sure how much these things would cost or how feasible they actually were. She just really wants to highlight the importance of improving ADA access to these areas. So,
Mhm.
so we're on the same page. I think we'll probably end up with a, one application related to that topic. But, more to
Okay.
come.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Dave, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I guess first off, thanks, thank you, Tony, for letting me come. Thank you to the committee. I did want to follow up. Is there a suggestion on a percentage or an amount that you think would help help our applications chances? Just trying to get a better sense on what my ask is to the board tomorrow.
Speaking on behalf of the committee, I don't think you're going to get like a number. I think any amount of matching effort is received positively by the committee.
Right.
Is that fair to
Thank
say?
you.
That was so beautifully said, Tony.
But I do think it's important, like as I think it was, I don't remember who said it, but whoever said quantifying the value of the donated labor is not nothing, right? That's really, that's a lot, right? Designing footings for poles that don't fall on people, I'd say that's worth something, right?
Yeah.
That's a good one too, Alan. Thank you.
Thank you again. I appreciate
Dave,
it.
does that help you?
Yeah, it's very good. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Let me see. Other business for tonight. The only other thing I can say is that I will sort of put myself through an intensive course in Zoom sleuthing. If I can put that, if there's a course called Zoom sleuthing where we can find these links. But I do think it's important for the town calendar to be easy for people to attend, to get into and
Yeah.
find the meeting.
Right. I mean, that link should be in the calendar box.
It should be really,
I
really
just
easy.
took all the whole list that Paul sent out. I just took each one of them and copied them into a calendar entry for myself into my work calendar, which is where I keep everything.
Yeah, that's what I
So-
suggested that everyone do.
That's fine,
Yeah,
but that doesn't help the
It doesn't
public.
help the people who didn't get the
No, it doesn't
email.
help the
Correct.
public.
The
Correct.
Does
link,
not.
the link on there is a clickable link on the community calendar.
It didn't seem to work, Tony.
Didn't work.
So that could be as simple as there was an additional space at the end when you hit, before you hit enter, when you submitted the thing. So it's a matter of just double checking it, but
Right.
you got the link on there. Sometimes some committee notices they aren't hyperlinks. It just has it, but you can't click on it. So you have to copy and paste.
Right.
This one was clickable. So I wonder, it might just have an extra space in there
I
somewhere.
see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Well, we
thanks.
don't have web services at town hall who make sure that things work, do we?
We can work with you directly to make sure that that we don't run into that issue in the future.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. But thank you for your patience tonight. It was
Yeah.
a good sleuth and good coaching, Ellen. Thank you. Any further comment for tonight? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn, Nancy.
Thank you. Second, anyone? Anyone good for that?
second.
Okay. Roll call. Paul,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
Dave.
Aye.
Okay. Chair votes aye. Meeting adjourned 9:13. Okay, I'm going to try to
Aye.
keep it to an hour and a half, guys, but you got to work with me. All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks
Thank
so
you,
much.
Lynn.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Dave.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night, everyone.
Barbara, thank you for sticking with us. Good to have you back. Bye-bye now.
Right.